The history of All Hallows Eve. Many present-day Halloween customs are directly descended from the Celtic people of the British Isle and France. From 200 BC to 200 AD, these people shared an organized religion called Druidism. Druid priests were shamans and necromancers who foretold the future and taught that souls did not die, but that those of the good passed at death into newborn children, while sinful souls were relegated to live in the bodies of animals. Well versed in astrology, magic, and the mysterious powers of plants and animals, the Druids gathered in oak forests or by lakes and rivers to conduct their rituals. Among their gods were Sunnunos, the horned god, a sun god, the god of the cauldron, and Samhain, lord of the dead. October 31st, a joint feast honoring Samhain and the sun god, was the most important religious event of the Celtic year. The new year began on November 1st, and on its eve, time appeared to belong neither to the old year nor to the new. The Druids believed that sins of the evil dead could be expiated through gifts and sacrifices to Samhain, who had the power to decree in what form their existence would continue, as animals or humans. The sacrifices were grisly. Horses were burned, as they were sacred to the sun god. Black cats, which were either friends of witches or transformed into witches themselves, were also thrown into the fire. But for Samhain, lord of the dead, humans were sacrificed. Men were imprisoned in wicker and thatched cages built in the shapes of animals or giants and put into the hot fire. By observing the way they died, the Druid priests saw and pronounced omens of the future. Besides the sacrificial fire, other huge bonfires were built as well, on hilltops and in the villages. These fires were kindled to rejuvenate the sun and to guide the good spirits on their journey, as well as banish the evil ones. Tables of food were prepared for the spirits in hopes that they would be pleased and help with the magical spells and curses invoked during the feast. Afterwards, villagers wearing masks and costumes led the ghost away from town. Secular researcher Richard Cavendish writes, "The singers and dancers went from house to house in blood-curdling masks and costumes which may have been meant to protect them against evil, and which were probably also tangible representations of what lurked unseen in the night. It is these masks and disguises which have descended to children, who visit the neighbors for the offerings which once belonged to the dead, and play small malicious tricks on those who would refuse them, the powers of evil." Although the formal Druid religion eventually died down, its beliefs and rites were continued by groups of people throughout the centuries. One of these, worship of the horn god, was continued by the Wicca, or witches, across Europe. Witches' Sabbaths were held several times a year, with the main celebration on October 31st.